The piano keys felt cold beneath her fingers. Dr. Cassian Rivera sat alone in the empty backstage of Belmont Music Hall, her hospital scrub still visible beneath her coat. The building was supposed to be closed. The gala wouldn't start for another 4 hours, but she had needed this. Needed to feel something other than the hollow ache that had lived in her chest for 4 years. Her fingers found the opening notes of Moonlight Sonata. The melody filled the silence like a ghost returning home. She closed her eyes and let the music carry her backward, through time to a small apartment in Seattle, to a boy with dark curls who would climb into her lap while she played, who would rest his head against her shoulder and ask her to play it again. Mama, one more time. Ronan would be 9 now. She hadn't seen him in 4 years. The tears came without permission, sliding down her cheeks as her hands moved across the keys. She didn't try to stop them. There was no one here to see, no one to judge, just her and this borrowed piano and the weight of every choice that had led her to this moment. The final note faded into silence. I didn't know anyone was here. Cassian's eyes flew open. Her hands stilled on the keys. A man stood in the shadows near the stage entrance, tall, lean, wearing the navy blue uniform of the venue's maintenance staff. He held a mop in one hand, but he wasn't moving, just standing there watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. I'm sorry. Cassian stood quickly, wiping at her face. I shouldn't be here. The event coordinator said I could wait backstage before the gala starts, but I didn't think anyone would be working this early. You play beautifully? The words stopped her. There was something in his voice, something raw and familiar, like he knew exactly what it felt like to pour grief into music and hope it might somehow fill the empty spaces. Thank you. She gathered her coat, suddenly self-conscious. I just needed to play. For my son. He used to love that piece. The man's expression shifted. Understanding flickered across his features like candlelight. Before he could respond, Cassian's phone erupted in her pocket. The ringtone cut through the quiet like a siren. She answered without looking at the screen, already knowing what it meant. Dr. Rivera, we need you at Vanderbilt. It's your patient, Briar Thorne. Her heart is failing faster than we expected. We're moving up the surgery timeline. The blood drained from Cassian's face. I'll be there in 10 minutes. She ended the call and met the man's eyes, her mind already racing ahead to the hospital, to the little girl whose chart she had memorized, whose chances she had calculated and recalculated 100 times in the past week. That's my daughter. The words came from the man in a whisper so quiet, Cassian almost didn't hear them. But when she saw his face, she understood everything. The fear, the helplessness, the kind of terror that only comes when the person you love most in the world is slipping away and you can't do anything to stop it. Briar Thorne is your daughter. He nodded, his knuckles were white around the mop handle. I'm Dr. Rivera, pediatric cardiac surgery. I've been treating Briar for the past 3 months. Cassian stepped closer. I'm the one who's going to save her. The man's legs seemed to give out. He leaned against the wall, eyes closed, breathing like he'd just surfaced from deep water. I'm Declan, he managed. Declan Thorne. 6 years earlier, Declan Thorne had stood backstage at Rising Stars with his entire future spread out before him like a map. 28 years old, a voice that could crack the ceiling and mend hearts in the same breath, and a pregnant wife at home who believed in him with the kind of faith that made him believe in himself. The finale was in 20 minutes. 5 million people watching, record labels waiting, everything he had worked for within reach. His phone rang, Mercy General Hospital. Sophia's name on the screen. The choice wasn't really a choice at all. He ran, left the studio, the producers screaming behind him, the cameras still rolling, ran through the parking lot into his car, through red lights and stop signs and every single rule that stood between him and the woman he loved. Sophia died 3 days later. Briar was born 4 hours after that, 6 weeks early, weighing barely more than a bag of sugar. A hole in her heart the size of Declan's entire world. The headlines wrote themselves. Contestant abandons show at finale. Rising star falls. Vivian Cross, the celebrity judge who had championed him from day one, appeared on every morning show with the same message delivered in the same perfectly modulated tone. Anyone who walks away from opportunity doesn't deserve a second chance. 6 years later, at 34, Declan cleaned the floors of the same venues where he used to dream of performing. He worked 2 shifts a day, slept 4 hours a night, sang only in the dark hours before dawn when Breyer was asleep, and couldn't hear the way his voice broke on every note. The surgery would cost $92,000. Insurance covered less than half. He had 2 weeks to find the rest. He had no idea where to even start. Cassian met him in the pediatric cardiac unit an hour after the phone call. Breyer was stable for now, her small body dwarfed by machines that beeped and hummed with mechanical certainty. Declan sat in a chair beside the bed holding his daughter's hand, like it was the only thing anchoring him to earth. At 32, Cassian Rivera had rebuilt her life from ashes. 4 years ago, when she was 28, the court had ruled against her. Unstable, they'd said. Vindictive. A lying ex-wife with an axe to grind. She'd lost custody of Ronan to a man who had put her in the hospital twice, who had stolen from charities meant to save children's lives, who had connections deep enough to bury the truth. She had seen this scene 1,000 times. Terrified parents, sick children, the weight of impossible decisions. But something about this man, this father who had recognized grief in her piano playing, made her pause in the doorway. "Mr. Thorne?" He looked up. His eyes were red-rimmed hollow with exhaustion. "How is she?" Cassian stepped into the room, her professional mask sliding into place. "Stable for now, but we need to operate soon. Her heart is weakening faster than we anticipated. We're looking at 10 days, maybe 2 weeks at most." "And the surgery, will it work?" "Open heart, 8 hours. We'll close the septal defect and repair the valve damage. The success rate for this procedure is 85%. If everything goes well, she should make a full recovery." Declan's hands were shaking. How much Cassian had learned years ago that honesty was kinder than false hope. 92,000. Your insurance will cover about 40%. She watched the numbers hit him like a physical blow. Watched him do the math in his head, adding up every penny he didn't have, every miracle he would need. "I can't. I work 2 jobs and I still can't even get close to that." "We'll figure it out." The words came out before Cassian could stop them. Before she could remember that she wasn't supposed to make promises she couldn't keep. "There are programs, financial assistance, payment plans. We'll find a way." Declan met her gaze like she had just offered him oxygen in a room where he'd been suffocating. A small voice interrupted them. "Daddy!" Both adults turned. Breyer's eyes were open wide and blue and far too aware for a 6-year-old. "Hey, baby girl." Declan leaned forward, brushing hair from her forehead. "How are you feeling?" "Tired." Breyer's gaze drifted to Cassian. "Are you the angel?" Cassian felt something crack in her chest. "I'm Dr. Rivera, sweetheart. I'm going to help make your heart strong." "You have sad eyes." Breyer's observation was matter-of-fact, the kind of brutal honesty only children possess. "Like Daddy, did you lose someone too?" The room went silent except for the steady beep of monitors. Cassian knelt beside the bed, bringing herself to eye level with this impossibly perceptive child. "Yes, I lost someone very precious to me." Breyer reached out with one small hand and touched Cassian's cheek. "Daddy says when we lose people, they become stars. Maybe your person and my mommy are friends up there?" Cassian's vision blurred with sudden tears. She couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, could only feel the weight of this dying child's comfort offered so freely, so purely. Declan's voice was gentle. "Breyer, let Dr. Rivera." "It's okay." Cassian managed to smile. "She's right. Maybe they are friends." Breyer smiled and closed her eyes, already drifting back to sleep. Cassian stood aware that Declan was watching her with something like understanding, like recognition. "Your son," he said quietly. "The one you played for. Where is he?" The question should have felt invasive, should have made her defensive. Instead, it felt like the first time in 4 years that someone had asked because they actually wanted to know the answer. "Seattle, with his father." "I haven't seen him in 4 years." She didn't offer more. Didn't explain about Kieran, about the court case, about the lawyers funded by people with deep pockets and deeper secrets. Didn't tell him that she'd lost custody of her own child because she'd tried to tell the truth about things powerful people wanted kept hidden. But somehow, looking at this man who had sacrificed his entire career to be with his wife as she died, Cassian thought maybe he already understood. Declan's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, and his expression darkened. What is it? Email from Belmont Hall. Mandatory attendance tonight for all staff at the Voices of Hope Gala. He showed her the screen. Hosted by Vivian Cross. Raising money for the pediatric cardiac unit. Cassian felt ice flood her veins. Vivian Cross. You know her. I know of her. Cassian's voice had gone flat. Her company, Sterling Entertainment. Her COO is Kieran Ashford. Declan's eyes widened. Your ex-husband. The one who took my son. The one whose legal fees were paid by Vivian Cross herself. Cassian pulled out her phone, fingers flying across the screen. Within seconds, she had pulled up an article from 4 years ago. Look at this. Declan read the headline. Sterling Entertainment Charity questioned. Only 15% of funds reach recipients. She's done this before. The fraud. Kieran was embezzling from the charity accounts, but Vivian was already skimming off the top. He just took his cut. Cassian's hands trembled. I tried to expose them, went to the board, to the press, to anyone who would listen. And they destroyed me for it. Made me look unstable, vindictive, a bitter ex-wife making false accusations. The judge believed them. Everyone believed them. Declan stared at her. You tried to expose them, and they took your son. Yes. They stood there in the sterile hospital room, two people who had been broken by the same machine, staring at each other with the dawning realization that they weren't alone. Daddy! Both turned. Briar was awake again, watching them with those two knowing eyes. Why do you both look so angry? Declan knelt beside the bed. We're not angry, baby. Yes, you are. Briar's gaze traveled between them. The bad lady on TV, the one using my picture for her show tonight. She's the one who hurt you, isn't she? Daddy, Declan's jaw tightened. On the screen above Briar's bed, a promotional video for the Voices of Hope Gala was playing. Children with heart conditions, smiling doctors. And their center stage in a glittering gown was Vivian Cross, talking about hope and second chances and helping those who couldn't help themselves. Briar's image flashed on the screen for 3 seconds. Yes, Declan said quietly. She hurt me. Briar turned to Cassian. Did she hurt you too? Cassian couldn't lie to this child. Yes. Then you should stop her. Together. Briar said it like it was the most obvious thing in the world. That's what heroes do. They help each other. She paused, her small face serious. Broken people can fix each other. That's what Mommy used to say before she became a star. The words hung in the air like a benediction, like permission. Declan met Cassian's eyes. The gala is in 3 hours. I know. I'm supposed to be working it, cleaning up before and after. And I'm supposed to be there as a representative from the hospital, to smile for the cameras and pretend I don't know where the money really goes. What if we didn't pretend? Cassian felt something shift in her chest, something that felt dangerously close to possibility. What are you suggesting? Declan stood. When he spoke, his voice was steady, certain. I'm suggesting we do what your son's mother said. We fix each other, and we stop her. Belmont Music Hall glittered like a jewel box. 500 guests in evening wear champagne, flowing photographers positioned at every angle. The live stream had already hit 2 million viewers. Vivian Cross knew how to put on a show. Cassian stood in the back row, anonymous in a simple black dress. Her hospital ID was in her purse, her credentials ready if anyone questioned her presence. But no one looked at her. All eyes were on the stage. Declan was backstage, mop in hand, watching from the wings. Waiting. Vivian took the stage in a gold sequined gown that caught the light like armor. Her voice was warm, practiced perfect. Tonight is about more than music. It's about hope. It's about giving these children. She gestured to the screen behind her, where images of sick children played in a carefully edited montage. Briar's face appeared for exactly 4 seconds. A fighting chance at life. The audience applauded. Every dollar raised tonight will go directly to Vanderbilt Children's Hospital. Every ticket purchased, every donation made, all of it to save lives. Cassian felt rage burn in her throat. She had seen the financial reports, knew exactly where the money went. 12% to the hospital. The rest disappeared into administrative costs, production fees, and offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. Vivian performed 3 songs. Her voice was good, well-trained, professional. But when she introduced the 4th song, Cassian saw Declan tense in the wings. This next piece is very special to me, Celestial Heights. Some of you may know it as the song with the highest note ever performed live in contemporary music, the C6 that earned me 2 Grammy Awards and a platinum record. She smiled at the audience like she was sharing a secret. This is proof that when you believe in yourself, you can reach heights you never imagined possible. The band began to play. Vivian sang. Her voice was strong through the verses, controlled through the bridge. But Cassian, who had spent 4 years learning to listen for the spaces between words, for the truths people didn't want to say, heard something else. The note was perfect, too perfect, and it wasn't coming from Vivian's throat. Declan heard it too. Cassian could see it in the way his shoulders went rigid, the way his hands clenched at his sides. He was listening with the ears of someone who had spent his entire life training in music, who could hear the difference between a human voice and a digital recording. The final note rang out crystal and flawless, and the audience erupted. Vivian bowed, accepting the applause like it was her due. "And now," she said, her smile widening, "I'd like to bring someone special on stage." The spotlight swung to the wings, to Declan. "Mr. Thorne, would you join me?" The audience turned. 500 faces. 2 million people watching online. Declan stepped into the light. He looked small up there in his maintenance uniform, yellow cleaning gloves still on his hands. Vivian towered over him in her heels and her armor of sequins. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Declan Thorne. Some of you may remember him from Rising Stars 6 years ago." Her voice dripped with false sympathy. Such incredible potential, such a gift, until he walked away from the finale, just disappeared. No explanation, no apology. The crowd murmured. Declan stood frozen. "My wife was dying." The words cut through the noise. Quiet, steady, true. Vivian's smile didn't waver. "And now look where life has brought you. Cleaning up after people who didn't give up on their dreams? It's really quite touching." Laughter rippled through the audience. Cruel and cold. Cassian was moving before she realized she'd made the decision. Walking down the aisle, her heels clicking against the floor, every eye turning to watch her approach. "Or maybe," Cassian said, her voice carrying to every corner of the hall, "you should prove you can actually sing that note live, Ms. Cross." The hall fell into stunned silence. Vivian's eyes found Cassian in the audience. "Excuse me." Cassian kept walking until she reached the stage, climbed the stairs, stood next to Declan in her simple dress and her hospital ID still clipped to her purse. "I'm Dr. Cassian Rivera, pediatric cardiac surgery, one of the doctors this gala is supposedly supporting." She turned to face the audience. "But I've done my research. Your previous galas sent only 12% of funds to the hospital. Where did the other 88% go?" The crowd erupted. Gasps, whispers, phones raised throughout the crowd, capturing everything. A man stood from the VIP section, tall, handsome, wearing a suit that cost more than Declan's annual salary. Kieran Ashford. Cassian's blood turned to ice. She hadn't known Kieran would be here. Hadn't known he'd brought Ronan to Nashville for this event, some sick power play, forcing their son to watch him stand beside Vivian in triumph. But she saw movement in the shadows near the back, a small figure, dark curls catching the light. Ronan had slipped away from his father's security detail, was standing alone, phone in hand, recording everything. "Security, remove this woman," Kieran commanded. "She's my ex-wife, unstable, a documented liar." Cassian felt the old shame try to rise. The weight of every courtroom, every judge who had looked at her like she was crazy, every lawyer who had made her sound vindictive and cruel. But then Declan stepped forward, stood beside her. "Then remove me too, because I heard the same thing during rehearsal this afternoon, Ms. Cross." He turned to face Vivian directly. "That note you just sang, you can't hit it. I watched you crack on A-sharp, and then I watched your sound engineer turn up the backing track to cover it." Someone in the audience shouted, "Then prove him wrong, sing it without the track." Another voice joined in, "Yeah, if you can do it now." Vivian's composure cracked for just a second, just long enough for everyone to see the fear. "This is absurd. The track is part of the arrangement. Then turn it off, Declan said, and sing. Vivian's gaze cut to her sound engineer. The man was pale, sweating. After a long moment, he reached for the controls. The music began again. Stripped down. Raw. Nowhere to hide. Vivian sang. She made it through the verses, through the bridge. Her voice held steady through the climbing notes, the ascending melody that had made her famous. But when she reached for the C6, when she pushed for that impossible height, her voice shattered like glass. The note came out as A sharp, a tone and a half below the target. A crack so obvious even the audience members with no musical training could hear it. The hall erupted in chaos. Vivian tried to speak, but the damage was done. In the wings, a young man stepped into the light. The sound engineer. "She's right," he said, his voice shaking but clear. "I'm Daniel Park. I've been Vivian's engineer for 7 years. I've played that backing track at every single performance. She's never sung that note live, not once." A man stood from the front row. Silver-haired, distinguished, a face Cassian recognized from album credits and Grammy telecasts. "I'm Trevor Hudson. I produced Vivian's platinum album." His voice carried across the silent hall. "The voice on Celestial Heights isn't hers. It's a studio singer named Autumn Hayes from Austin, Texas. She was paid $2,500 and forced to sign a non-disclosure agreement. She was never properly credited, never given her due." He turned to face Vivian. "I stayed silent because that's what we do in this industry. Protect the star, protect the money. But I'm done protecting lies. Especially when a janitor has more courage than I've had in 30 years. Kieran Ashford rushed the stage. "This is slander. Vivian will sue every single one of you." "Dad." The voice came from the audience. Small, scared, impossibly familiar. Cassian's heart stopped. A boy was standing in the aisle. 9 years old, dark curls, eyes just like hers. "Ronan." He ran to her, pushed past security, past Kieran, past everyone trying to stop him, and threw himself into Cassian's arms. She caught him, held him, felt 4 years of grief and longing crack open in her chest. "Mom, I heard everything. You're not a liar. You never were." Kieran reached for him. "Ronan, get away from her." "No." Ronan pulled out his phone, held it up with trembling hands. "I recorded you, Dad. Last night, talking to Ms. Cross." He pressed play. His small fingers found the volume, and then Kieran's voice filled the hall, amplified through the stage speakers. "The charity money is clean. Offshore accounts in the Caymans. Rivera will never find the trail." Vivian's voice cold and calculating. "Good. And Ronan's custody hearing next month, we bribed the judge as planned. Standard 50,000. The entire auditorium went silent. Ronan turned to his father with eyes full of betrayal. "I didn't know what it meant, but now I do. You're criminals." Vivian lunged for the phone. Declan stepped between them. Kieran grabbed Declan's arm, tried to shove him aside. Cassian punched Kieran Ashford in the face. Her fist connected with his jaw with a crack that echoed through the shocked silence. He went down hard, blood streaming from his nose, sprawling across the polished stage. The audience erupted, some screaming, some cheering. Live stream viewers climbed past 3 million, the numbers rising by the second. A woman in an expensive suit appeared at the edge of the stage. Vivian's lawyer, Cordelia Sterling. "Everyone stop. My clients will not be making any further statements." She surveyed Cassian and Declan with cold fury. "You've just destroyed your lives. Enjoy your lawsuits. We'll see you in court." She swept Vivian and Kieran off the stage, security forming a wall around them. But it was too late. The live stream had already gone viral. 3 million shares in the first hour. Ronan's recording spreading across every platform. Trevor Hudson's confession trending worldwide. Cassian stood in the wreckage of her carefully controlled life, her son in her arms, Declan beside her, and felt something she hadn't felt in 4 years. Belief. The lawsuit papers arrived the next morning. $12 million in damages plus criminal assault charges against Dr. Rivera. Named defendants Declan Thorne, Dr. Cassian Rivera, Daniel Park, Trevor Hudson, and anyone who spread the alleged false and defamatory allegations. Cordelia Sterling delivered them personally to Declan's apartment. She sat across from him at his kitchen table, a smile on her face that never reached her eyes. Melissa Morales, the lawyer who had agreed to represent them pro bono, reviewed the documents with a grim smile. The assault charge is theater. You punched him while he was attempting to physically separate you from your minor child. That's textbook self-defense. They know it won't stick. This is about intimidation. Cordelia ignored her. This is very simple, Mr. Thorne. Sign this retraction. Admit you were mistaken. Accept a settlement of $150,000. We'll also cover your daughter's surgery. Full $92,000. She slid another set of papers across the table. All you have to do is say you lied. Declan stared at the papers. $242,000. Everything he needed. Briar's life guaranteed. The door opened. Cassian walked in, Ronan at her side. She'd spent the night with her son for the first time in 4 years. Her eyes were swollen from crying, but she was smiling. Cordelia didn't miss a beat. Dr. Rivera, perfect timing. There's an offer for you as well. $100,000. Kieran drops all custody claims. You get full custody of Ronan starting immediately. She paused for effect. All you have to do is admit you made false accusations against Vivian Cross in Sterling Entertainment. Say you were vindictive, unstable. Let the world think you lied. Cassian met Ronan's eyes. At this boy who had sacrificed his relationship with his father to tell the truth, who had recorded evidence of crimes because he believed his mother deserved justice. No. Cordelia blinked. I'm sorry. I won't sign. Cassian sat down next to Declan. I didn't lie. Neither did he. Declan pushed the papers back across the table. We teach our kids that truth matters, or we teach them it doesn't. I'm not signing either. Cordelia's expression hardened. Then you're both fools. By tomorrow morning there will be stories about you, private things, painful things. Your lives will be examined and dissected and destroyed. And when you're drowning in legal fees and public humiliation, remember that you chose this. She left. Ronan looked up at Cassian. Mom, are we going to be okay? Cassian pulled him close. Yes, baby, we're going to be okay. But she wasn't sure she believed it. The video dropped 6 hours later. A woman in her late 30s, blonde hair pulled back, sitting in a professional recording studio. Gold records lined the walls behind her. My name is Autumn Hayes. For 7 years, I've been the voice Vivian Cross sold as her own. She held up contracts, non-disclosure agreements, invoices stamped with Sterling Entertainment letterhead. Here's my agreement for Celestial Heights, $2,500 for a session that took 4 hours. Here's the NDA that said I could never claim credit for my own work. And here, she pulled out her phone, is a recording of my original vocal track, recorded in this very studio 7 years ago. She pressed play. The voice that filled the speakers was unmistakably the same one from Vivian's platinum record, the same impossible C6, the same crystal perfection. Declan Thorne told the truth. Dr. Cassian Rivera told the truth. And I'm done staying silent while good people get destroyed for my cowardice. The video went viral within 2 hours. 5 million views, 7 million, 10 million. By evening, 8 more studio singers had come forward, each with contracts, each with NDAs, each with evidence that Vivian Cross had built her entire career on stolen voices. Trevor Hudson released the unedited album files proving every word he'd said. The raw tracks showed Autumn's voice layered over Vivian's, the digital manipulation, the careful editing that had created the illusion of a voice that didn't exist. The Grammy committee announced an investigation. 6 major sponsors dropped Vivian within 12 hours. Sterling Entertainment's stock plummeted 40%, and the FBI opened a formal investigation into charity fraud and judicial bribery. The courthouse was smaller than Cassian had expected. Davidson County Room 4B. Just 30 people in the gallery, mostly reporters who'd camped out since dawn. Judge Patricia Donovan was in her 60s, silver hair, pulled back, sharp eyes that missed nothing. Cordelia Sterling stood with a team of 5 lawyers arguing for a gag order on everyone who had spoken at the gala. Across from them, Melissa Morales presented the evidence methodically. The gala footage showing Vivian's public humiliation of Declan. Ronan's recording with Kieran and Vivian's voices clear and damning. Autumn Hayes' contracts and original recordings. Trevor Hudson's testimony backed by forensic audio analysis. 8 studio singers' evidence, each one another nail in the coffin. When she finished, Judge Donovan turned to Vivian. Ms. Cross, I'm going to ask you one question. Although you're not on the stand, you are under oath. Can you right now in this courtroom sing the note in question? Cordelia started to object, but the judge raised her hand. Sit down, counselor. This is relevant. Ms. Cross, sing it, or admit you cannot. Vivian's face went pale. Your Honor, I don't see how my ability to perform on demand in a courtroom. I'll take that as an admission. Judge Donovan banged her gavel. The request for an injunction is denied. Furthermore, I'm sanctioning the plaintiff for filing a frivolous action intended to silence truthful speech. Mr. Thorne, Dr. Rivera, you're free to tell your story. That's called the First Amendment. It protects the truth even when the truth is expensive. The gavel came down again. Outside the courthouse, a crowd had gathered. 200 people holding signs. Justice for Declan. We believe Cassian. Truth wins. A black SUV pulled up to the curb. John Legend stepped out. He walked directly to Declan, cameras following his every move, reporters shouting questions. Mr. Thorne, I've been following your story. What you did for your wife, what you're doing for your daughter, that takes courage, most of us will never have to find. He paused. Your daughter's surgery, all $92,000 is covered. She's scheduled for next week. Declan couldn't speak, could only stare as this man, this stranger, offered him a miracle. Alicia Keys appeared on a video call held up by an assistant. And I'm covering all post-op recovery costs, physical therapy, medications, follow-up care, everything. Breyer is going to be okay. Within hours, Kelly Clarkson had tweeted a GoFundMe link. $340,000 raised before sunset. Messages of support flooding in from around the world. Cassian stood in the chaos, watching the world rally around the man beside her, and felt something fundamental shift in her understanding of what was possible. Breyer's surgery was scheduled for Thursday morning. 8 hours. Dr. Walsh heading the team. Cassian, assisting the hospital administration, had suggested she recuse herself given her personal involvement. She'd refused. Declan spent the night before in Breyer's hospital room. Ronan stayed with them, this boy who had become part of their strange, broken, beautiful family in the span of 2 weeks. At dawn, the nurses came to prep Breyer for surgery. She was calm. Too calm for a 6-year-old facing open-heart surgery. Daddy. Right here, baby girl. I'm scared. Declan took her hand. Me too. But you're still doing the right thing, even though you're scared. Breyer looked past him to where Cassian stood in the doorway, in her surgical scrubs, her hair already tied back, her hands scrubbed and ready. Dr. Cassian, yes, sweetheart. Are you going to be my mommy now? The question hung in the air. Cassian felt her throat close with emotion. Would you like that? Yes, because families are people who love each other even when they're broken. And you love my daddy, I can tell. Ronan grinned from his chair in the corner. She's right. You guys are terrible at hiding it. Declan met Cassian's gaze across the hospital room. She held his stare, and in that moment, with these children watching them with hope in their eyes, they both understood that this was the question that mattered more than any lawsuit, any scandal, any career. I love you, Declan said. Not a question, a declaration. Not because we survived this together, but because when I look at you, I see someone who never stopped fighting for truth, who never stopped loving her son even when the world told her she shouldn't. You make me believe in second chances. Tears burned behind Cassian's eyes. I love you too. You showed me that broken doesn't mean worthless, that sacrifice doesn't mean failure, that there are still good men in this world who choose love over everything else. They kissed, gentle, sweet, the kind of kiss that promises futures and forevers. Finally, Ronan said. Breyer smiled, her face lighting up despite the IV in her arm and the surgical team waiting outside. Ronan can be my brother now. Deal. They wheeled Breyer to surgery 20 minutes later. Declan and Ronan sat in the waiting room, hands clasped, barely breathing. 8 hours felt like 8 years. Cassian worked with precision she'd honed over a decade. Every suture, every cut, every moment of this child's life in her hands. Dr. Walsh led the procedure, but Cassian was there for every second, watching Briar's heartbeat in her open chest, seeing the defect they'd studied for months finally able to repair what had been broken since birth. When Dr. Walsh finally emerged into the waiting room, still in his surgical scrubs, Declan stood so fast his chair fell over. The surgery was successful. We closed the defect, repaired the valve. Briar's heart is healthy. Declan collapsed, just fell to his knees on the sterile hospital floor and sobbed. Ronan wrapped his arms around him and cried too. Two broken people holding each other in a moment of perfect, impossible grace. 3 hours later, Briar woke up in recovery. Cassian was sitting beside her bed, still in her scrubs, exhausted but smiling. Dr. Cassian, "Hey, sweetheart, how do you feel? Sleepy, but good." Briar glanced around the room. "Where's Daddy?" "Getting coffee with Ronan. They'll be right back." "Did you fix my heart?" "We did. You're going to be just fine." Briar was quiet for a moment. Then she whispered, "Can I tell you a secret?" "Of course. I wasn't scared because I knew you wouldn't let me die. You're too stubborn, just like Daddy." Cassian laughed, the sound breaking through her exhaustion. "Where did you learn that word Ronan taught me? He says stubborn people change the world." Briar smiled. "I think he's right." 1 week after Briar's surgery, federal agents arrested Vivian Cross and Kieran Ashford at Sterling Entertainment headquarters. The charges were read in front of assembled press: charity fraud, embezzlement, attempted bribery of a judge. Combined sentences 15 to 25 years. Footage played on every news channel. Vivian in handcuffs, her face a mask of shock and fury. Kieran, silent beside her, finally speechless. The Grammy committee revoked Vivian's 2 awards. California passed the Cole Rivera Transparency Act, requiring full disclosure of all charitable donations and performance credits in the entertainment industry. The Recording Academy overhauled its crediting system to ensure studio singers receive proper attribution. Autumn Hayes' debut album went platinum within 3 months. She performed at the Grammys singing Celestial Heights with her own name in lights. And Declan Thorne signed with Heart Song Records, an independent label owned by Artists for Artists. His album Silent No More, co-written with Cassian during Briar's recovery, debuted at #2 on the Billboard charts. 14 months later, Declan stood backstage at Belmont Music Hall. But this time, he wasn't wearing a maintenance uniform. He was wearing a suit. His name was on the marquee outside, his face on the posters lining the walls. Briar sat in the front row, healthy and radiant, a thin scar on her chest hidden beneath her favorite dress. Ronan sat beside her, protective and proud. Cassian stood in the wings wearing an engagement ring that caught the stage lights, watching the man she loved prepare to reclaim what had been stolen from him. Declan performed You Are My Sunshine, reimagined as a duet. He called Briar and Ronan on stage for the second verse. They sang together, 3 voices blending in imperfect harmony, creating something more beautiful than any polished studio recording. For the final verse, he reached out his hand to Cassian. She joined him, took the microphone, sang with him in front of 2,000 people who had come to witness not just a performance, but a resurrection. When the song ended, Declan addressed the audience. 6 years ago, someone told me I didn't deserve a second chance. But my daughter, my son, and the woman I'm going to marry taught me something different. He turned to his family on the stage beside him. We all deserve second chances, not because we're perfect, but because we're brave enough to keep singing, even when the world tells us to stay silent. The audience rose as one, applauding, cheering, some crying openly. In the front row, a janitor from Belmont stood holding a sign, "Still knew you could sing." Backstage, former studio singers watched with tears streaming down their faces. Finally credited, finally seen, finally free. And in the wings, Cassian held Ronan and Briar close, watching the man she loved take his bow, and thought about the piano in an empty backstage, about Moonlight Sonata, played for a lost child, about the moment when 2 broken people found each other in the wreckage and decided to build something beautiful. Briar's voice cut through the applause, small but certain, captured by the microphone still clipped to her dress. "Daddy says broken crayons still color. I think broken people still love, and that's what makes them beautiful." The words rippled through the crowd like a wave. Someone recorded it, posted it. Within hours, it would be shared 10 million times, printed on T-shirts, quoted in graduation speeches, whispered by people who needed to believe in second chances. But in that moment, it was just a truth spoken by a 6-year-old girl who had survived impossible odds, standing between a janitor who became a star and a doctor who got her son back, and a boy who chose truth over comfort. A family, not born but built, not perfect but real. The lights went down, the curtain fell, and somewhere in the darkness, two people who had almost given up on everything found each other's hands and held on. Because that's what heroes do. They help each other stand. And when the world tries to break them, they sing anyway.